In 2010, a group of people crowded into my living room with the simple question of how do we bring our neighbors who are far from God to new life in Christ. The vision that would emerge out of those gatherings would come to be known as Encounter Church. And we started gathering and meeting in a school cafeteria that we had rented for only 4 hours a week. And as people started coming and as God started bringing people to Him and in His heart and raising them up to new life in His Son, Jesus Christ, we had dreamed of having a space where we could call our own, having a neighborhood that we could invest into, a neighborhood that we could bless and continue to bring our neighbors to Jesus. But the problem was, it looked impossible. There was no way that we could ever spread out. There was no way that we could ever afford such a building for all these people that God was bringing. And then God did the impossible. I got a phone call from our realtor, and we had been working on leasing this building for over 2 years, and now our realtor was saying that the owners were ready to sell it to us at only a fraction of the listing price. God was giving us this impossible mission, but doing the impossible in order that we may succeed. God was bringing us further than we ever thought possible, faster than we could have imagined. As we moved in and started renovating the space, every time we reclaimed a square foot, God would bring more people far from Him to new life in His Son, Jesus Christ. A little while ago, we celebrated another baptism worship weekend. It was incredible, church. We had somebody as young as 13, 14 years old dedicate their life to Christ. We had somebody as old as 72 years step out of the tank and to share with me that his only regret was not getting baptized sooner. Again, God is doing the impossible, pulling us further and faster than we could have ever imagined. The question before us now, where do we go next? Our facility was filling up. We were adding worship experiences. We had our eyes set on starting a new church, either west of where Encounter Kentwood was today, or either north, closer into the heart of the city. And we felt drawn to both of those areas for a variety of reasons. Last December, I convened a vision team meeting where we just discerned God's will together and poured over demographic information. And the result of that meeting of 30 people discerning God's will together was unanimously each one of the individual 5 table groups came to the conclusion that God was drawing us north, closer into the heart of the city. And it looked impossible. It looked impossible again because into the heart of the city, there's no way that we could ever have afforded a permanent 7-day-a-week space, cars for our guests to park their cars in the parking lot. We could never afford a kid space for people to bring their children to. How was God going to do this? And again, a phone call came in from the leadership of this church, Mayfair Church, saying that they've identified Encounter Church as the church that could bring the 2,791 neighbors who live in and around Fulton Heights to new life in Jesus Christ. And what would a partnership between our churches look like? What would it look like for Encounter Church to come into Fulton Heights and bring people who are far from God to new life in Christ? Again, we could sense God was taking us further and faster than we ever thought possible.
When I first started talking to Dirk about the opportunity to join the team at Encounter Church as the location pastor at Fulton Heights, I was so inspired by the story of the merger with Mayfair Church and Encounter. But really, it was the vision for the future, that this location would not just be a more convenient option for the people in the city, but that this would be a place for you to invite your one. That you would be able to invite your friends and your coworkers, your neighbors and your family. That this would be a missionary hub for you to live out the hope of Jesus Christ in Grand Rapids. I'm so excited for the work that we're doing in here now. We're renovating and this is going to be an awesome building. The paint, the carpet, the new speakers, the video, all of it's going to be incredible. But it's more than just a cool building. This is our opportunity to live out the hope of Jesus. This is our opportunity to care for this community, to serve this community. This is your opportunity to invite your parents, your roommates, your coworkers, And we're so excited to see how God is going to keep working and how we're going to go further, faster.
So that's our vision, to bring people who are far from God to new life in Jesus Christ. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am to establish a brand new missionary outpost here in Fulton Heights, as well as in Kentwood. A lot of people have asked me, is now really the right time to establish a brand new church with everything going on? And I'd just like to revisit the first part of our story that I shared, that the church launched in 2010. Well, the foundation of that church was laid in 2009, when I went from person to person and household to household, casting this vision of a church where people could invite their friends and neighbors and see them experience new life in Jesus. And I was met again and again with that same response. In a season that would be called the Great Recession, is now really the right time with everything going on? In church, we've seen God move in 2010. We've seen God take His church further and faster. And now we're about to see God move again in 2020 and beyond. I am so excited for you to look back on this season in 2020. When somebody asks you, what were you up to? How did you spend this bizarre season? And you can look right back at them and say, I laid the foundation for my church's greatest missional endeavor yet. What I'm asking for, church, very directly, is your partnership. I'm asking you to pray every single day from now until the end of the year. Pray for your one. Pray for the person that you desperately want to see come far from God to new life in Christ. Pray for the 2,791 people who live in and around Fulton Heights, Grand Rapids, who haven't yet experienced the love of Jesus. I'm also asking you to make a financial contribution. I'm asking you to sacrifice for a great cause of the kingdom. I'm asking you to move, maybe from having never had the opportunity to give to a church before, to make your first contribution to God's movement. I'm asking you to consider a move from an ongoing $25 gift a month to a one-time gift towards the Further Faster campaign that God is taking us on. I'm asking you to consider your household budget and where you can sacrifice for the joy of the new life that God is bringing. And maybe that's going to look like $100. Maybe that's going to look like $100,000. I'm asking you to participate with us in the joy of bringing people far from God to new life in Christ. And you can do that today by visiting encounterchurch.org/give and partner with us in bringing God's gospel message further, faster than ever before.